What happens to your real estate if you have an estate or a will, or what happens if you have neither? Now, if you missed the last episode, click here to check out why you need a will in the state of Texas, or you can let the state dictate what happens to your assets. Hi, everyone. If we haven't met yet, I'm Troy Sage, local realtor, where I'm dedicated to doing real estate differently. And I've been helping people just like you for over 15 years with all of their real estate needs. In this video, I am interviewing the highly accredited and Wall Street Journal featured attorney, Kristi Arlitt, here in the North Dallas, Texas area. In this video, we're going to discuss estates versus wills. Do they work together? Do they not work together? What you need to protect your assets in real estate. We're also going to discuss safekeeping and heirship proceedings. So let's dive in.
My next question is does that all have to be in an estate, or is an estate something totally different than a will, or do they work together?
You have different estates. You have the estate while you're living, and then you have an estate when you die. Here's an interesting one. A lot of your assets at death can pass not via the will, but via other documents that you've signed. When you go into the bank and you open up an account, you can open up an account that's called a payable on death, POD, and you can say, when I'm no longer here, the other person on my account can come and get the money, and it's theirs. When you open up a 401k, you fill out a beneficiary form, and that's going to control who's going to get the assets in your 401k.
And it's just cut and dry, so someone passes, they can go right into the bank or right to the 401k and withdraw the money.
Yes, but they have to get a death certificate.
Okay.
Yes, but
So
pretty quickly. It takes a while. They do not issue the death certificates immediately. And we have probate estate. Probate estate is what is going to pass via your will. And to do the probate estate, we have to find the original will. The courts do not like to take Xerox copies. And to get a Xerox copy into the court, you have to prove that the decedent, the person who died, did not destroy the original will. The house burned down. There was a flood. Something happened to the will. So the court then will let you bring in a Xerox copy. But normally they want the original will, which is interesting too, because trying to figure out with our Xerox and copying abilities today, just because we sign everything in blue ink, I always make everyone sign in blue ink. A lot of times you can't tell if that's a Xerox copy. And I have literally been in the courtroom where the judges are holding up the sheets of paper of the will, and they've turned them around and they're running their finger on the back of the page
to see if there's
an impression from the pen when the person was signing it.
Wow.
And of course, it's interesting because somebody gets their hand on the will and they don't like what it says. What do you think happens to that will?
Well, it gets thrown out, or it gets destroyed, or
it never
gets changed.
Found.
Okay.
It never gets found.
Yeah.
So we have ways to protect the will. And this is something that a lot of people do not know. A lot of attorneys don't know this. In every courthouse in the state of Texas, they have what is called safekeeping. And you can take the original will in for $5, a one-time charge of $5. They take the will and they fold it up. They put it into a little packet. They seal it's a little white packet about this big, and they seal it. And on the outside of the packet, you write the name of the will, like it's the will of Kristi Arlitt, deposited on X day, and then I could list on that packet who can come get that will. In other words, nobody's going to get their hands on that will unless they are listed on that packet. So I tell people, look, for $5, you don't need to keep a lockbox, you don't need to keep a safe, you don't need to worry about where the will is. Take it to your county courthouse. Put it into safekeeping and let it sit there. And then the court is constantly checking to see who dies. They get reports of who has passed away, and they start checking to see whether or not there's a will there from someone who has passed away.
So it's like a safe deposit box.
For $5.
For $5.
Right.
I mean, how can you beat that?
You can't.
And it's at the court, so there's no one's going to say, oh, I found this other will. That's the one that's being held at the courthouse.
Well, except that there could be a subsequent will. You may write a will Well, lawyers, we write the will of the week because
Right.
we write them all the time.
Right.
Every time you get mad at somebody, you're, I'm changing that will.
Yeah.
But you may have a will from 5 years ago or from 10 years ago. The newest will, the most current will, that is found to be a true viable will under the laws of the state of Texas and meets all the requirements of it, will be the controlling will. That's the one that the court will actually use.
So here's a hypothetical.
Okay.
Say I have a will and it has been for $5. It's held at the courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
And on my dying breath, I tell my best friend next to me, you get my car, you get my house, and I'm going to high five you. There's no way to document that.
You better get down to that courthouse and get that will.
Yeah.
Or write a new will.
Right.
Now, you have the chance to write a new will. You can write a new will, and that will supersede the one that you put at the courthouse. And I have been in the hospitals literally almost at the last moment signing those new wills.
So the bottom line to this is have a will.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
It's too easy.
Yeah, just have a will.
Right.
Or
Right.
basically you're going to let the state control what's going to happen with you and with your stuff.
And let's talk about what happens. Let's say you don't have a will or you don't have a good will. Doesn't meet the requirements of law. So you don't have a will that the court can enforce. So what do? We head into what is called an heirship proceeding, and that's H-E-I-R, like your heirs, heirship proceeding. And you want to spend some money, and you want to have a real fight and some real problems, start doing an heirship proceeding. Because what you have to do, you have to find a minimum of 2 disinterested witnesses who can tell you things about the decedent. They have to be able to tell the court how many times they were married, how many times they were divorced, what happened to each of the marriages, maybe their spouses passed away. They have to be able to tell how many children they had and which children and roughly the ages. You know, they don't have to have the exact birthday, but they have to be able to identify the children. They have to tell the court whether or not the decedent adopted a child. They have to testify to the court about whether or not the decedent took in a child into their home. They never really adopted them. They never really called them their child. But it was pretty obvious that there was a relationship there. They have to testify to that. Easy enough if you die at age 35 or 40. Well, let's talk about the people who die at age 80, 85, 90. We have a lot, 90 now. You can't find anybody still alive who can testify to all of that.
Right.
Everyone's died off. And that is a real serious problem. And heirship proceedings are expensive. It is not unusual for them to cost well over $5,000. Sometimes there can be some conflict, and then the amount of cost is unlimited.
And that's if somebody does not have a will.
You don't have a will.
Right.
Right.
What's the difference between a trust and a will?
Well, I hope that answered the majority of your questions when it comes to estates versus wills, safekeeping, and of course, heirship proceedings. If you'd like to reach out to Kristi Arlitt direct, look in the description below or leave a comment and I'll be happy to connect you with Kristi. There's also a link in the description below to our full interview. It's about 39 minutes long and it's highly informative. Feel free to check out that video. And if you want to know what the difference is between a trust and a will and how they work to protect you and your assets, click this link up here and check out the next episode. Of course, if you'd like to stay current on all things real estate, click subscribe and the bell so you're alerted every time I upload another video. Until next time, my friends, make it a great day.